Hello, and welcome back to the Peter Mackay Motorsport Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. I really hope that you enjoy it. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, thank you very much for tuning in and welcome. And if you're a repeat listener, thank you also. That's very nice for you to tune back into the podcast. For those that don't know, you can follow our podcast on Podbean, and if you do that, what will happen is your device where you listen to your podcast on, every time a new episode is released, it will pop up a little notification for you to let you know that a new episode has been released. You can also find our podcast on iTunes and Stitcher and a number of other podcast platforms as well. You can get in touch with me on the show. I'm at Mackay Podcast on Twitter, at Peter Mackay Motorsport on Instagram, and on our Facebook page, which is just the Peter Mackay Motorsport Podcast. So check those out and follow us, and do get in touch with the show. Now, today, what are we going to talk about? Today, we're going to talk about the finale of the British Touring Car Championship, which took place at Brands Hatch on Sunday afternoon. And it was an absolute classic event, following the usual format of touring car races. 3 races over the course of the day. The first race following the order of the Saturday qualifying, the second race following the finishing order of the first race, and then the third race is the reverse grid. And I must be honest, I'm struggling to get my head around how the reverse grid actually works, but anyway, it creates some absolutely fantastic racing nonetheless. British touring cars is certainly, I would say, it's in a real bill of good health at the moment, and it's in a bit of a golden era. You've got so many different cars and drivers that are capable of winning races. We've had 12 different winners in the British Touring Car Championship this year, and the formula that the guys, Alan Gow and the organisers of the championship have put together just really work well, and allows a variety of different manufacturers to compete for race wins and for championships. And well, that's what we saw on Sunday. 5 drivers came into Sunday's final round with a chance of at least mathematical, of winning the championship. But the 3 main protagonists were Colin Turkington in the WSR West Surrey Racing BMW, Dan Camish in the Team Dynamics Honda Civic Type R, and Andrew Jordan in the Pertec WSR West Surrey Racing BMW as well. And it was an absolute cracker. And I'm not sure what the exact reasoning is for Brands Hatch always being chosen for British Championship finales. This weekend it will be hosting the finale of the British Superbike Championship, but I'm really glad that they do, because Brands Hatch, for whatever reason, Brands Hatch in October seems to throw up the most unpredictable and entertaining motor racing you will ever be likely to see. We've seen so many fantastic showdowns and big shock surprises on the final day of both the British Touring Cars and the British Superbike Championship. You know, we've seen in the past, in the British Superbikes a couple of years ago, Leon Haslam came into the final round with 3 races to go at Brands Hatch with a commanding lead in the title, and just one by one over the 3 races through a variety of external factors, his championship just started to unfold, and it was like watching a ship slowly edge towards a massive iceberg, and there's nothing you could do about it. And in the third race, third and final race, still in very good shape to win the championship, and he had a brake failure, at about 150 miles an hour at Brands Hatch is not very funny at all, and he was quite badly injured from the accident. Bike was destroyed and lost the championship to Shane Byrne on the Ducati that year. Ironically, that's what happened, exactly what happened in the British Touring Car Championship on Sunday, with poor old Dan Camish suffering brake failure with 1 lap to go from a championship winning position. It was absolutely devastating to watch. We've also seen, we've seen a British Superbike Championship being decided by about 2 or 3 metres, or even less than that possibly, between Tommy Hill and John Hopkins in 2011. 11. So Brands Hatch has just got this ability of developing these amazing showcases of motorsport and these exciting and dramatic finishes, which is just wonderful. Also, the weather in the United Kingdom in the middle of October usually is wet and cold, which wreaks absolute havoc, and that is what we saw on Sunday. So Colin Turkington in the BMW, he came into the final round at Brands Hatch with quite a comfortable lead in the championship. Basically, had it. He was looking good. He also put it on pole position on Saturday with the full weight ballast. So what happens in the British Touring Car Championship is that when the cars arrive at each round, they're given a weight ballast depending on their championship's position. So the leader of the championship will be given the heaviest weight, and it will go all the way down from there. And the idea is that it stops one car or one driver from dominating the whole year, and it's a wonderful system, and it throws up such a myriad of factors, and it throws up so many unpredictables, and that's what you want to see. And I think that's why the British Touring Car Championship, it gets about 7 or 8 hours of continuous coverage on a Sunday afternoon on ITV4, which is a terrestrial TV channel in the UK. And that to get that level of coverage, it means that it must be an exciting enough spectacle for people to tune in and watch it. And I think the ballast system really works quite well. And the good thing is it's totally transparent. It's always displayed. Anytime you'll see the driver's name, a graphic will come up. It will say if they're carrying ballast or not. So it gives you a little bit easier to understand as well. But Colin Turkington with maximum ballast put it on pole position with the championship lead, and you thought, is this going to be tied up before the final race? But oh my goodness, no, it was not. In the first race, it started off a kind of maybe's eye, maybe's no, as we say here in Scotland. It was kind of half wet, half dry. The whole field started off on slick tyres, but under a safety car about halfway through the race, a number of drivers came in and took the gamble to try wet tyres. And two guys that really made the wet tyres work were Matt Neal in the Team Dynamics Honda and Tom Chilton in the Ford Focus, the threaded wheat Ford Focus. But most of the drivers, they were the only two guys on wets in the top 8. Most of the others were the championship protagonists, and in particular Dan Camish in the other Team Dynamics Honda Civic Type R. So Dan Camish went on to win the first race on slick tyres, an absolutely astounding drive, brilliant car control. Really, I mean, when you can imagine the pressure. He's never been in that position before to challenge for a British Touring Car title, and he's the pressure of driving a car flat out round Brands Hatch in a kind of half wet, half dry. There's a little bit more rain coming down. You're on slick tyres. You've got to keep the temperature in the tyres, but not push too hard. I can't imagine the mental strength you need to do that. So Dan Camish, that was the driver of the season for him, I think, in race 1. We also saw in race 1, just narrowly missing out on a podium, was in a podium running position for most of the race, was Rory Butcher in the Honda Civic Type R, the RCIB Insurance Civic Type R. We're going to talk a lot about him later on. He had a fantastic weekend, and he was really unlucky. He just got pipped for the final place on the podium by a hard charging Tom Chilton, who was on the much preferred wet tyre by that point, and anybody on dry tyres were a bit of sitting ducks to Neil and Chilton, but Rory Butcher brought it home in 4th, and his independent championship rival Josh Cook, he unfortunately finished out the points, so there was a huge swing in fortunes over the day between those two guys for that particular title. But Turkington, he finished in a solid 5th position and came out of the first race with still an 8-point lead from Dan Camish. But in race 2 was where it went absolutely Pete Tong for Colin Turkington. Colin Turkington was again running up the front in a very good position, looking good. And a few laps into the race, he is punted off, and he's been punted off on a number of occasions. In the last few rounds, he has been He's definitely been the guy with the target on his back, and nobody's been tiptoeing around him. In fact, quite the opposite. It seems that if you're the championship leader and you're the man to beat, you're the man with the number one on the side of the car, going for your fourth title, and it shows you'll get absolutely no courtesy from the other drivers at all. So it is absolutely extraordinary. What happened was, obviously, Dan Camish in the Team Dynamics Honda, he was going for the title. Dan Camish's teammate, Matt Neal, also racing for Team Dynamics Honda, who was not in the fight for the championship, but of course Colin Turkington in the BMW was. And Matt Neal, I think it was turn 4, Matt Neal tried to stuff it up the inside, got up inside Turkington, clipped the back of him and spun him around, which actually sent Rory Butcher off around, had to take avoiding action and go onto the grass, which cost him. He ended up finishing down in 9th because of that. But poor old Colin Turkington, it put him right to the back of the pack, right to 25th position, which was obviously, from quite a good haul of points to absolutely no points at all. And then safety car came out, and Turkington's team decided, well, we'll take the risk. We'll get everybody else was on wet tyres at that point, and they thought, well, we'll take a risk on slick tyres. But unfortunately, he just couldn't. After the safety car was released, he just couldn't get those slick tyres to switch on, unfortunately, and finished in 25th place. So after race 2, all of us having come into the round, on pole position with a good championship lead, all of a sudden he was 8 points behind Dan Camish and was starting from 25th on the grid for race 3, which was just a disastrous couple of races for Colin Turkington, and it really looked quite unlikely at that point that he looked like the championship had slipped through his fingers, and a lot of it could have been decided on Dan Camish's teammate Matt Neal punting him off. Now, I would not say that Matt Neal had done that on purpose, but you can imagine the politics involved between basically the two biggest teams in the paddock, the two big kind of manufacturer-backed teams, Honda Team Dynamics and West Surrey Racing BMW, going for the championship. That's that for that to happen, it was. I'm glad that didn't actually end up deciding the championship, because that would have left quite a sour taste for many. So it all came down to race 3, and we saw the drive of Colin Turkington's life. Got up from 25th position to 6th position in race 3. Absolutely amazing, in a grid so closely contested and so close on time as the British Touring Car Championship, and he just carved his way through the field with just amazing precision and control, and he managed to get his way through. However, with one lap to go, it looked like it still wasn't going to be enough. Dan Camish was in the position to pinch the championship. He hadn't led the championship all year up until this penultimate race of the season, and looked like he was going to win. But throughout the race, Dan Camish he's a notorious hard braker, but you could see that his front brake discs were glowing bright orange under braking, whereas all the cars around them were not. And the commentators picked up on it and spotted it and said, "Well, that's Dan Camish. He's a hard braker. That's what happens." And then all of a sudden, on the penultimate lap, looking like Turkington had valiantly come up from 25th to 6th, but wouldn't still look like it's not going to be enough. And then all of a sudden, in one of the faster parts in the back part of the circuit, a fast right-hander, all of a sudden Dan Camish's car just spears off the road into the gravel and smashes into the barrier. Thankfully, he was okay, but it was a very, very fast, accident. And it was at such a strange place where it happened, where it could have only been mechanical failure, and of course that's what it turned out to be: brake failure with one lap to go, and stealing your potential first ever British Touring Car title. That will hurt for Dan Camish, but he will have won a lot of fans on Sunday, because he took it very well. He didn't shy away from the TV interview at the end, and really thanked his team, said it's the first time we've not finished a race this year, and just bad luck, just bad timing. And Very, 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 very unlucky. And of course, it's something that could happen at any point of the season. But when it happens at that point, has the same effect. You lose the same amount of points, but it's so much more painful when it happens at that critical moment. So, but he'll be back. He's reportedly he'll be back with Team Dynamics next year, and he's one to watch for sure. We saw in race 3, we saw two old teammates actually returning to the top step of the podium at Brands Hatch on Sunday. We saw in race 2, we saw former champion Ash Sutton in the Subaru take his first win of the season. It's been a very difficult year for them with the BMR Subaru Levorg. Quite down on straight line pace. Very good through the corners. You could really see that at Brands Hatch. Really good corner speed could carry, and very good in the wet as well. But poor in a straight line. But that was good to see Ash Sutton get back to the front again. And then in race 3 we had Jason Plato get his first win for nearly 2 years, and showing the touring car paddock that he is absolutely not done, and also shows that if you look at Jason Plato and Matt Neal, guys like that, it shows you that you can still be very competitive in the British Touring Car Championship, even if you are the wrong side of 50 years old. Jason Plato, now here, this is a plug for Jason Plato. If for those of you who are looking to think what your next read is going to be, what's the next book you're going to read, either a racing book or otherwise, buy Jason Plato's book or download the audiobook. In fact, downloading the audiobook, that's what I did. I listened to it in the car. It's absolutely hilarious. He is quite an extraordinary chap, and his career story, although a lot of it's stories of him getting up to absolutely no good, but actually his tenacity of how he made a career in motor racing is a fascinating story to take in. So I highly recommend you go and either buy Jason's book or download the audiobook, because it's absolutely hilarious as well. It's just entertaining as well. But great to see him back up the front, and hopefully we'll see him back next season, and we'd love to see him get to 100 British touring car wins, which would be really, really cool after such a long illustrious career in the sport. Andrew Jordan, he was just thereabouts. He only finished 2 points behind Colin Turkington in the overall honours. He gave it absolutely everything at the weekend. He came 8th in race 1. Struggled a little bit in the damp conditions in the rear wheel drive BMW. It came 2nd in race 2 and 4th in race 3. So he had a really solid weekend all round. Just fell that fraction short, but it could have just a couple of things gone his way and he could have won that championship, but it was just so close. Unfortunately, his long-time sponsor Pertec, they won't be involved in the sport as of now. That's them now. They've finished their involvement with the British Touring Car Championship, and let's hope that doesn't prevent Andy Jordan from getting a drive together in the British Touring Car Championship, because he thoroughly deserves to be up there. He's one of the very best drivers in the championship. So I want to get on to a wee bit of patriotic coverage here for our man Rory Butcher. Rory Butcher, he had a very good weekend at Brands Hatch over last weekend, winning the Independent Drivers' Trophy. It came into the round quite some distance behind Josh Cook in the Honda Civic Type R. In the saloon model, if you like, and Rory's in the hatchback style model, and it was Rory all through the day just clawed back all the points that he needed and managed to win that trophy, but only by a couple of points, but just managed it to win that independent trophy. And that's such a big scoop for his team and all his sponsors who put it all together to get him into a good car and a good team in the British Touring Car Championship. And he's delivered this year. He also won the Jack Sears Trophy, which is for drivers who hadn't previously had a podium finish in the BTCC and the highest score. So he won that and came 5th overall in the overall championship standings. And if it weren't for a slightly poorer weekend at Silverstone a couple of weekends ago, you never know, he could have been in that fight for the overall title as well. And I'm sure that will be the focus for the former Formula Ford Festival winner. He's had a brilliant year, 3 wins, one at race 3 at Brands Hatch Indy at the beginning of the season, one at Snetterton in race 3, and a fantastic win in front of his home crowd at Knockhill in race 1. I was there at that particular race. He raced all the way through against Andrew Jordan, wheel to wheel, and then just with 1 lap to go, Jordan got past him, but then into just out of Duffus Dip, he stuffed it up the inside and took the race win. It was just extraordinary to watch. So watch out for Rory next year. He's with a good car and a good team like that he has. He could be a dark horse for next year's championship. For those of you who maybe not seen Sunday's race of the British Touring Car Championship, go back and have a look at it. It's amazing. You can get it, you're in the United Kingdom, you can go on the ITV hub and just type in British Touring Car Championship and it will bring up Sunday's broadcast. Unfortunately, you've got to watch all the adverts, sadly, so if you're skipping through, you do have to watch the odd advert or two, but worth it to watch some fantastic wheel-to-wheel action and real drama. So go and check it out and go and enjoy that, because it was absolutely breathtaking stuff on Sunday. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this little recap of the season finale of the British Touring Car Championship. Next season, we're going to try and do a lot more the British Touring Car Championship. Hopefully get to a couple of races and do some interviews and things like that. So do stay tuned for that. Again, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. I really hope you've enjoyed it. And please don't forget to follow us on Podbean. Follow the channel and you get notifications of all the new episodes. Follow us on Twitter at Mackay Podcast, Instagram at Peter Mackay Motorsport, and Facebook, the Peter Mackay Motorsport Podcast. Thanks very much for listening, and I'll speak to you again very soon.